Hi, I'm Kristin Omdahl and welcome back to my studio. In this video, I want to show you some tips and tricks for getting started making one of the projects from my brand new book, 24 Crochet Hats, Interesting Techniques and Inclusive Sizing for Men, Women, Children, and Babies. Let's get started. This is the Milo textured motif hat. This is a modular motif that is worked in rows with a lot of texture created by a few simple stitches. The pattern sizes range from babies through men. The invisible join for the seam of the hat is an unusual seaming technique that alternates folding right sides together and then folding wrong sides together on alternating motifs to balance the texture. You will need a size G6 4mm crochet hook or whichever size needed to obtain gauge. And you'll also need number 3 DK weight yarn. This hat is shown in Biso baby yarn. This is color platinum, and you'll need 1, 2, or 2 balls of yarn depending on which of the 4 sizes you'll be making. The hat begins with making one of these little square motifs, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you add the extra motifs to the original motif without cutting yarn between motifs. We start with motif 1. In the pattern, you'll find detailed schematics per size and detailed charts along with the written instructions. You want to tie your yarn to your crochet hook. Motif 1 begins with working 21 foundation single crochets. A foundation single crochet starts with a chain 2 that counts as your first stitch. Then you're going to insert your crochet hook into the second chain from your hook, counting back 2, not including the loop on your hook. That's your working loop. We'll count back 1, 2. Insert your crochet hook into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1 loop on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook. That is a foundation single crochet. I do want to point out that it was that yarn over, pull through 1 loop on your hook before the yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook that created this vertical bar right here. And that's where we're going to work our next stitch. So it's insert your hook into that vertical bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, that's creating the vertical bar, yarn over, pull through 2. So remember when I stopped and said that's creating the vertical bar? That's what you want to be mindful of so that you can remember that that's where you insert your hook for the very next stitch. So we'll do it one more time. You want to continue until you have 21 foundation single crochets, keeping in mind that that first chain 2 counted as your first stitch. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 1 of motif 1. Row 2 begins with a chain 1, and we're going to work single crochet through the back loop only in each of the next 9 stitches. So you might be wondering which is the first stitch, and if you're a beginner, this is a very common question and something that is important to know. So when you chain 1 and you turn your work, and now I think that as a beginner you could be confused between working into, let me grab that pointer again, between working into the chain 1 you just made or the first stitch. And this is where beginners can sometimes get confused. This is the working loop on your yarn. There's the chain 1 we just made, and there's the first stitch. So now that we know where the first stitch is, you want to insert your hook into that first stitch, but through the back loop only. So these 2 loops are the top of the stitch. If we were working a normal single crochet, we'd work through both of them, but the instructions say work through the back loop only. So it's insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. That's 1 single crochet through the back loop only. You want to do that in the first 9 stitches. Next, we're going to work a double decrease of single crochet 3 together through the back loop only. So we're going to insert our crochet hook into the next stitch back loop only, yarn over, pull up a loop, then do that same thing in each of the next 2 stitches. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. So we inserted our hook and pulled up a loop in each of the next 3 stitches in the back loop only. We now have 4 loops on our hook, and yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on your hook. That's single crochet 3 together through the back loop only. Then you want to work 1 single crochet through the back loop only in each of the remaining 9 stitches in row 2. Row 3 begins with a chain 1, turn your work, 1 single crochet through the back loop only in each of the first 8 stitches. single crochet 3 together through the back loop only over the next 3 stitches. Then single crochet through the back loop only in each of the 8 remaining stitches. For rows 4 through 11, you want to work in this established pattern of working 1 stitch through the back loop only in each of the stitches until you get to the 3 center stitches and do the double increase. This is what your work should look like at the end of motif 1, and notice that we worked in that established pattern, decreasing by 2 stitches on each row in the center until we actually reduce all the way down to 1 stitch. Now the second motif is worked a little bit differently because we don't need to start it from scratch. We're going to start the first side of it along the edge of the last motif, and that way we'll be joining it as we go as well as making the next motif. So row 1 on motif 2 is chain 1, and then we're going to work 10 single crochets evenly spaced along the end of the previous square. So we'll just insert our crochet hook into the edge, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. I'm going to do that for a total of 10 stitches. And then for the rest of our row, we're going to work 11 foundation single crochets. When we start foundation single crochet at the beginning of the row, we do that chain 2 to start the row. When we're starting foundation stitches in the middle of a row, you can insert your crochet hook into the previous stitch to place the first one. So we'll insert our crochet hook into the side of the last single crochet made, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1 loop on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook. That's our first foundation single crochet made. And that yarn over, pull through 1 loop on our hook portion of it created that vertical bar, and that's where we're going to work our second foundation single crochet. And we want to do a total of 11. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 1 of motif 2, and you should have 21 stitches, which is great because now we can repeat rows 2 through 11 of the first motif for the second motif. This is what your work should look like when you have 2 motifs joined. You'll want to repeat motif 2 until you have a total of 6, 7, 8, or 9 motifs in this first strip. And the number of motifs depends on whichever size of the pattern you're making. The instructions are the same for any of the extra motifs along that first row. What's different is when we go to work a next row of motifs, how we begin the first motif on top of the first row of motifs is a little different. So let me show you how we begin motif 7, assuming that we're making the smallest size, which would mean we would have 6 motifs along here. Then we would be starting motif 7 on the second row. When you get the pattern, this will make so much more sense because I've numbered all of the tiles or motifs on all of the schematics for each of the sizes, so you'll see exactly what I mean then. Okay, so the first motif on the second row of motifs, or motif 7, as I said, we're going to be starting that motif with a chain to come up here and then work our row along the edge. So we start by chaining loosely 11 chains, then single crochet in the second chain from your hook. That's the working loop on our hook. Chain 1, chain 2, work a single crochet in that chain and in each chain across. And then you want to work 11 single crochets along the end of row of the previous motif. This is what your work should look like at the end of row 1 of motif 7. And that would be motif 7, 8, 9, or 10, depending on whichever size of the hat you're making. And so now that we have 21 stitches, we can now repeat rows 2 through 11 of the very first motif. Okay, we have now completed the first motif on the second row of motifs, and you'll notice that we've still only done a one-sided join, which means the last construction style that I need to show you for these motifs is how to do a two-sided join. And it's pretty simple. What we'll be doing is combining working along the edge of this motif with working along the edge of this motif, and evenly spacing 21 stitches along here. So we'll do 10 stitches along this side, 1 in the center here, and 10 stitches along this side, and then we'll end up repeating rows 2 through 11 of all, just like all the other motifs. So we'll chain 1 and then working evenly across the end of rows. We'll work 10 stitches along this side, and then I like to place 1 stitch right in the center, and then we'll evenly space 10 stitches along the second side, so that 10 plus 1 plus 10 will give us our total of 21. There we go, and now we have our 21 stitches, and now you just want to repeat rows 2 through 11 the same as all of the motifs. And you want to refer back to your pattern to see how many motifs per row, how many rows of motifs you need in order to complete this gorgeous hat. Now also keep in mind, this stitch pattern is absolutely gorgeous for any two-dimensional pieces as well. You could make a scarf, a rectangular shawl, you could make a cowl, you could also make an afghan with this. I think that you are not limited to just making a hat with this stitch pattern. It would be gorgeous for a bunch of other projects as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please leave them for me in the comments. And everything we talked about today is linked in the video description below. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you in the next video.